Hi, I am Jeff in Control Robinson, and thank you for stopping by. Hopefully this video will teach you guys some stuff. We're going to do a Protoss versus Terran, and we're going to talk about kind of map decisions, map awareness, and we're going to illuminate some of the reasons why you would make said choices based on the map and your opponent and the circumstances that fall therein, and why we're going to become better players for it. So that's a lot of questions. Let's get to the answers. The map is Entombed Valley. My opponent today is Mental King, aka Maka, the Korean Terran, currently on Absolute Legends, I believe. Now, Entombed Valley is a problematic map. Obviously, in the PvZ matchup, it's very hard for Zerg players. But also, in these positions, it can be very powerful. Lower left, lower right, top left, top right. And the reason is our natural expansions are facing each other. So right here is where, well, let's just make it more simple. This is where the Terran player would take his third. This is where the Protoss player would take his third. And they are not far apart, right? So it's kind of like the Hatfields and McCoys. If you're too close and you hate each other, oftentimes what ends up happening is a lot of bloodshed. So Entombed Valley kind of does encourage that. And of course, between the three races, Zerg is the one that's going to benefit the least amount from that because their siege units, the Broodlords, don't come until much, much later, whereas Colossus or perhaps siege tanks, those are the stuff that you face in the early and mid game, and they are going to be much more powerful due to that proximity. But you know what? Enough trying to make Zerg players feel a little bit better about themselves and their wet tears. Let's talk about PvT. So because these expansions are set up the way they are, we have to understand that we're going to get dropped more often here, right? The Terran player is going to have medevacs, and this is our third. We could get dropped here. The other important stuff to talk about, too, is we do have a ramp leading up to our natural, and we do have a choke leading to our natural. So these are places where things like force fields are going to do much, much more for us on a map like this. If this were Metalopolis, I wouldn't necessarily recommend like a one-gate expand and utilize that Sentry Force because those force fields aren't going to help you out nearly as much. It's a much more wide open area. Other things I want to talk about too, though, are when we play against our opponent that's in a position like this, where they start off in the lower right-hand side and they're fairly close to us, it's actually really, really powerful to expand super far away from them. This base over here, that's really hard for the Terran to get at, right? Medevac has to go all the way over here, or his army has to go across the entire map, which is, of course, the longest distance, which actually makes the underside, the underbelly, if you will, very exposed. So that's kind of cool stuff that I like to think about, because oftentimes we're going to have this situation forced on us. You might say to yourself, well, in tournaments, they kind of, don't they force like cross or at least not linear positions? Yeah, you might absolutely be correct, but that still means there are going to be scenarios where, let's say a tournament doesn't opt for that, or a new map comes out where that close proximity function does occur. It's important that we know how to play against that. So do I take this third? Perhaps. Maybe I do. But this is actually a really good third as well because it's super far away from our opponent like we talked about, and it's not exposed to the weaknesses that are things like getting dropped all game long and being exploited that way. As it is, the game's just kind of taking shape. I'm going to go ahead and 5-gate, a strategy I don't do very often. I used to do it much more often, but it's very powerful. It has the option to really punish a Terran that's skipping around and not doing things. But with that SCV inside of my base like it was, he saw what's coming, and he's up to 3 bunkers, and he's got his SCVs in position. So honestly, the second I got scouted, I probably should have canceled out. These units shouldn't have even tried this. And they got up there and lost his zealot and kind of realized the same thing I should have realized about a minute and a half ago. They're like, this is never going to work. So we're not here to talk about necessarily the build itself, but 5-gate is definitely something worth experimenting. If it fails, you obviously have to take up all that gas, and then you got to make some hard choices. I honestly decided to go the straight and narrow, just Robo Colossus, and that's pretty tough because that's like basically saying, hey, I'm pretty far behind, I think, but I'm just going to kind of play normal, and hopefully I can take advantages elsewhere. What I probably should have done is something like a DT drop. That would be really cool, or, you know, Charge Lot Archon off of Double Forge, and really just kind of hedge my bets that I can make those advantages for myself elsewhere. But as it is, just kind of proceeding as normal. You can see his factory is going to go ahead and scout over here and give him some vision. I have actually brought down my rocks. That's a fine choice. I'm not, the rocks would have been nice in this situation, I guess, but I'm not counting on him attacking from that angle. And as you can see, it's a 2 force field, but in this case I was like being super safe. 3 force field, kind of tunnel area. And now he's doing that typical Terran thing where they're trying to take advantage of the fact that they have medevacs at the stage and they have a ground force. And he's rallying over here, doing a very good job of being extremely aggressive. That attack gets thwarted by the weight of my production, but also the stalkers in the back of my base. Meanwhile, sentries over here are all I need because I can drop a couple of pylons. Also, I like the cannons here. A lot of players don't do this. And I'll tell you, these cannons can do a great job of saving yourself from things like multitask errors. Like if these guys aren't paying attention for a second as he runs up here, oftentimes these guys will buffer that mistake and allow me to go ahead and fix that. Now he's set up to do a big Doom drop, and I want to talk about this here in a second too. When you're in close positions with your Terran opponent, this is the kind of stuff you can really expect to see. You can see it still. I mean, there's no scenario where this gets canceled out. If they're really far away from you, you're still going to see this kind of stuff. So I don't want to make this sound like this only occurs when they're close to you. But part of the reason why it occurs more when they're close to you is because these medevacs, if need be, can be snap called back home. Like let's say the Terran player sees something he doesn't like, and is like, well, okay, I got to come back home. It's not going to take him forever to fly across the map. It's actually just a very short little trip that's made even shorter by the fact that these guys fly. But this is such a powerful move for the Terran player because I'm going to have like 1 cannon if I'm super safe, which is what I'm doing. But eventually I have to move out, right? I got to apply some pressure. But I'm halfway across the map when he go ahead and drop me like this. But what am I doing? I'm focusing down the medevacs. This is really important for my stalkers. I want to make this costly for him. Otherwise, he's going to keep doing this over and over and over again. And there it is. 3 out of the 4 medevacs did die. He did kill the robo. He did kill some probes. And he definitely did kill some units. But at the end of the day, I'm slightly ahead. But I'm more ahead in terms of the fact that my army is larger. His medevac count is cut. And because I'm going Colossus, he's now having to get Vikings out. So I still haven't taken my 3rd here, but let's talk about this too. This is weird for the Terran player as well. Where does he take his 3rd? Well, I thought he was going to take it here, so I crack those rocks down, see that it in fact is not that location. And he's actually all the way up over here. Now, normally this is pretty cool for a Terran. If they can get a planetary fortress up there, then that's a really strong and very powerful move for them because it takes a lot for me to kill a planetary fortress, and oftentimes it takes a lot of time. So if he was to do that if he was to build that planetary fortress up there, it put me in a very awkward situation. As it is with an orbital, this is 10,000 miles away from any kind of defense that he could possibly muster, which means that when I show up right here like this, it's dead, and everybody up there is dead, which means he is in a lot of trouble. Now, he's late to the reaction. He's like, oh gosh, you're all the way up there, I'm going to go attack. Well, he can kind of probably feel how late he is, and he probably knows it's about to be broadside. And here we go, we're going to have the first major engagement. And between the force fields and the sandwiching of that zealot rally behind, he is now in a very awkward position. And this was created almost solely because of the fact that his 3rd was taken in a weird place. Let's talk about that. If he would have put his 3rd here, okay, and let's say my starting location was up here, it's really hard for a Protoss to attack up a ramp on either side against a Terran army. It's kind of cool to take advantage of this map in the situation where, like, let's say the Terran army is stuck in between here. My Colossus and force fields can fry the crap out of it, especially if they have no Vikings. But if they have Vikings, it's not nearly as cool of a position just because this area works really well for Vikings as well. Because it's high ground, so I can't quite as comfortably get underneath them with my stalkers. But then also the Vikings are going to get off 2, maybe even 3 volleys in some situations before I ever have a response. And those 2 or 3 volleys, depending on how many Vikings they have, can cost the Protoss a lot of money. So I end up actually taking this expansion up here. In retrospect, if I was being critical of myself, I would prefer it to be here or here. There's no real reason to make it just this much a little bit more exposed for both of us. But, that's neither here nor there as it is. I'm going to go ahead and tech towards Templar very naturally. He's even scouting the 3rd, and this is kind of creating a weird scenario. So he's actually scouting like every base except for the right one. Let's see. Yeah, he actually does know about it. So this is pretty weird for him. He's like, what? You're not here, and you're not up there. There's only this base, but he doesn't have that one. So at the end of the day, I guess I kind of tricked him with that. That's kind of cool, but still would rather have the other bases. Now, I want to make sure he's not returning the favor. He's already shown a propensity to go ahead and try to take a sneaky 3rd, so I'm going to drop pylons up and around here. And again, that's just playing this map. If you're in close proximities like this and you're in precarious situations just naturally, it's very good to cover your bases and make sure that the Terran player in particular is not doing things like dropping multiple command centers and doing things like taking advantage of what otherwise would be a disadvantage. As you can see, this drop is not going to survive, though, almost purely because of the good scouting of that probe over there. And now Maka's just in a situation where he feels like he has to all in. So he's bringing half his SCVs. He's killing the Templar ahead of time. Really strong, smart play in that regard. But unfortunately for him, the advantage was just too far in a way in my favor. A couple of storms do go off. And those couple of storms, plus the significantly better upgrades for me, result in actually a Protoss victory this time around. So just as a recap, we went into this saying, let's talk about maps. And I want to talk about a couple things about the maps. So obviously, again, if you're in that close situation where one bad mistake, kind of like Steps of War used to be for those guys that played during the beta, that's a really tough situation. If you make any kind of bad mistake, the guy has to take like 2 steps and he's in your base, you're dead. So one of the ways we can mitigate that is by taking our thirds, our fourths, and even our fifths in the furthest base possible away from our opponent, which is only made possible by the fact that the 2 mains are so close. So I highly recommend that because it's a little bit more forgiving. It allows you to, if you have good map control, respond in a more adequate fashion to the information you're receiving, but also it allows you to say, I'm going to play defensive, and because I have those bases so far away from him, I can actually focus my defenses on the more natural attack location, which would be the main in this situation, and the natural. So that's pretty cool stuff for us to go into maps thinking about. A big part of StarCraft 2 is mental preparation, but really understanding what you're facing and why you're facing it. So hopefully, while this probably is not the most exciting video you guys have ever seen, I hope this starts to give you a little bit more of an idea on what you need to be focusing on and what you can be focusing on to become a better StarCraft 2 player. And one of those big things are the maps that we play on and the positions we start off in. So today, we talked about Entomb Valley and the different reasons why we make the choices we do, where we spawn there. Hopefully that was beneficial for you guys. I am Jeff and Control Robinson. Do check out the other videos at evilgenius.net. We have Terrans, Zergs, and Protoss players making some content for you guys. Hope to see you soon.